Hi everyone. So this video is going to have a wee look at how we analyse imagery in the higher English course when we're doing close reading, and again obviously the skills are still relevant for a critical essay. If you're a National 5 student, you're in the wrong playlist, so jump over to the National 5 one and you'll get the equivalent one for your course. So what I'm just going to do is explain very quickly again how we approach imagery and then show you a couple of examples from some past papers. So firstly, about analysing the imagery, the trick to this is to be able to show the marker that you can make a connection between the literal comparison that's going on and what the sort of metaphorical suggestion is, so that you can go from I understand what that what that literally means, what that comparison is, but I can also see the importance of the implications of doing it as a bit of imagery and not as a simple statement. So for example, this one you can see here, if you say my brother is a pig and that's a metaphor, the structure for analysing that is this just as, so too. So just as a pig's seen as being willing to eat anything, so too the brother's presented as being greedy and disgusting. Now, obviously, if you're the author writing that sentence, they could have just said, my brother is really greedy. But my brother is really greedy, although it means basically the same thing as my brother is a pig, the effect and the implications of it are very, very different. The image it creates, I suppose, is very different, and therefore the effect it has on the person reading would be different and better, generally speaking. So if I show you a couple of example questions just now, you should hopefully see how it is we're going to go about breaking these down. So again, not going to be reading out all these things to you, but you're asked to refer to at least two examples for 4 marks. But analyse how the writer's using language to convey concerns about the impact of the internet. And obviously, when you get asked about using language or the use of language or whatever, then you can do any of the techniques, word choice and imagery, etc., and structure. So if we take one of the images that exists in there, we are caught in a series of confusing battles. Well, a battle suggests that two sides are in conflict, and that takes us on to understand the internet as being sort of potentially understood as this confrontation between opposing forces. So the comparison to a battle is effective because it allows us to sort of comprehend something about the kind of the fundamental nature of the way the internet has developed and the impact that it's had. So that's why we use that just as, so too kind of structure, because it guides you into doing that as clearly as possible. And you see it again, this may actually be an easier one to understand. Again, so this question actually says explicitly imagery and sentence structure. You would have to do both. So we'll pick out at least one image, and right near the start, it gives us that line, that phrase, junk food news, which is a really, really good phrase. But again, why use junk food news? Why use that bit of imagery? Because it's not literally junk food, so therefore it must be a metaphor. Why use that instead of just saying exactly what you mean? Well, because the effect is really, really good, because just as junk food's seen as being quick and cheap but bad for you, so too this kind of form of news is dead easy to consume, easy to produce as well. It doesn't cost much to produce, but ultimately it's bad for us as well. It's ultimately harmful for us in a similar way to junk food being bad to us. So both things, junk food itself literally, and this comparison here, junk food news, in both cases the things are easy to produce, they are cheap to access, but ultimately they are very bad for us. That's the kind of step that we're looking for you to go through when analysing imagery. The analysing imagery bit is one that does take people some time usually. I mean, it's fine, you've got until May for the exam, but it's worth, I think, trying to get your head around it early on and doing plenty of practice. So I mean, I'll give you lots of practice through the year, but as I keep saying, you can have a look in the past papers, you can see the kind of questions that are in there. You can also read things by yourself. So when you're doing the sort of reading that I recommended to practice for close reading, well, part of that should be to look for things like, look for imagery, look for word choice, and see if you can write out these kind of answers. And feel free, if you do, to send them to me, and I can happily check them for you and give you some feedback. Just send me a message, preferably through Microsoft Teams, but an email will work as well. Okay, so hopefully that's quite useful for you. After this, we'll be going on to look at how we analyse sentence structure.